have new information on the deadly attempted prison break in Pasquotank County. The sheriff's office just gave us an update on the attack that left 2 prison workers dead and about a dozen other people hurt.
Now investigators are trying to figure out how this happened. We have team coverage tonight.
We begin with Jimmy Lee in Elizabeth City. And Jimmy, you just spoke with investigators.
That's right, Regina. Right now, officials really aren't giving us much information as far as how this whole thing unfolded. But we do know that at some point a fire was intentionally set in the prison sewing facility and that a number of people were assaulted. How they were assaulted, we're not sure yet. But we do know that this was not a spontaneous event and that this was orchestrated by a group of prisoners in that sewing facility.
We have 4 inmates that appears to have been involved in the escape attempt.
4 inmates, yet to be named, were involved in a grand scheme to escape the Pasquotank Correctional Institute Thursday afternoon.
We found no evidence that anybody ever left the prison yard. There was no escape. It was an attempted escape.
The inmates failed to make it out, but in the process, 14 people were hurt and 2 prison employees killed. Officials say a fire was set in the prison sewing facility around 3 p.m. They're sifting through surveillance video to piece together a timeline of events.
There were several crime scenes throughout the prison that had to be processed.
Officials won't say what types of weapons were used in this incident and wouldn't disclose the types of injuries people sustained.
It's a sewing area. If you can imagine going into the area where you make commercial clothing, a vest, they will have the same kind of tools.
Every inmate who is allowed to work in the sewing facility must go through a screening process. Good behavior plays a big part in clearing the inmates to use the tools. Officials did say some of the inmates in the sewing facility were violent criminals. Charges for the 4 involved in the attempted escape are pending.
A lot of items were collected as evidence, a lot of items that we will try to put the pieces together with that could have been used as weapons.
Now, officials wouldn't say exactly how many employees were working in that sewing facility yesterday, but they did tell me that staffing was at appropriate levels. We also know that these correctional officers do not carry guns. They only carry mace and batons. And as far as the number of the people who were injured, we know that 3 of the 14 who were injured are still in the hospital, 2 of them in critical condition, and 1 is in fair condition. And the prison does remain on lockdown tonight as investigators continue to look into this incident. Live in Pasquotank County, I'm Jamie Lee, 13 News Now.
There are 3 security levels in Pasquotank Correctional Institution: close, medium, and minimum. Close security is the highest level. Close security prisons are comprised of single cells. Inmate movement is restricted and supervised, but inmates are allowed to work or attend programs inside the facility. Medium security setups have secure dorms with up to 50 inmates each. The dorms are locked at night with a correctional officer supervising the inmates. There is less supervision than in a close security area. In minimum security areas, correctional officers patrol non-secure dorms. Inmates have less supervision. Inmates in minimum security generally pose the least risk to the public.